if a tornado happened and I'm the guy who lost his house, and you
Hmm.
come up with a camera and go, what do you plan to do? And I'd say, well, I think I'm going to try to get a hold of my insurance guy first, but I'm sure he's really busy right now. So I was going to give it a couple of hours.
Yeah,
That will
you're not
never
going on
make the
air.
news.
If
Right.
I was the producer, I would be like, nope, not that guy.
Showing the guns. What's going on, man?
I came, sat down, Sean, had everything set up till I realized
Yeah.
that my computer was still at my work desk.
Oh, that that's pretty good. How'd you solve that?
I was like, yeah, very cool. Microphone, a little light, no computer.
You're all good. It all works. What's going on with you? We have a nice, cool July day outside. It's very strange.
Nice. Where do we start was what I was going to ask you. It's been a
Well,
hell of a week.
I think the Donald thing has been covered to death, so we probably don't need to cover that.
Mhm.
Um, it's up to you. Do you want to? Our state school superintendent has come out. I don't know what the deal is, but if you're doing rails and somebody tries to shoot you, you're like, oh my god, it's just been insane. And evidently, some more liberal teacher made some stupid comments online, as if that matters. I mean, go to
No.
Twitter. It's where all assholes survive.
Oh,
Um,
Sean, I sent you
I
that video that a friend of mine sent where it was like the old Home Alone movie where
right,
the little kid was asking Trump directions and he gives him directions. And then it like they overlay Biden on there and Biden doesn't say anything. And he shared
right,
that with me. And I was like, dude, really? This is what you want to send me at like midnight? And it's a really good friend of mine.
right.
So I didn't know what to say. So all I replied to him and I was like, dude, you have a sister. I have a sister. Who would you leave them alone with? That's all the
Oh
question
man.
is.
So what I always tell people is I go, look, we got a sloth and
Mm-hmm.
we've got the Joker from Batman.
Yeah.
Who do you want to be in charge? I
Mm-hmm.
mean, one makes a good 2 hour movie, but all I want to do is have the trains on the track and have the trains show up on time.
Yeah.
I don't need a big personality for that. So um let's if you don't mind, let's take a little caveat here because so Taylor Swift is on a European tour.
Mm-hmm.
She's been over there for a while. Before she left,
Yeah.
Donald's people were attacking her terribly, viciously.
Mm-hmm.
And and then it just died off as she left, as all political BS happens. It's all matter at the day. It's the outrage. Nobody
Yeah.
gets charged. Nobody goes to jail. They leave town. Oh my God, everything's okay. Like a. Yeah, it just doesn't even make sense. She comes back to America 2 months before the election is when her tour starts here. She
Oh,
has
yeah.
10 concert dates. Right. So if most people don't understand this, Taylor Swift had a concert, frustrated, told her people to go register to vote. A
Mm-hmm.
100,000 people registered to vote in one day.
Oh, yeah. I remember that.
So I don't know. I mean, the Democratic nominee seems to be Joe Biden.
Mm-hmm.
Throw Taylor Swift into the mix, and Joe Biden is in office.
Yeah.
Donald Trump is not afraid of Joe Biden, but you know who every person in entertainment is afraid of? Taylor Swift,
Taylor
because she's a
Swift.
good person. Right, because she's a good person telling people to
Mhm.
do good things against the Joker from Batman.
Yeah.
So if there's a ringer, it's her. It's not a VP candidate. It's not a VP choice. It's not any. The savior of American democracy could be Swifties.
Oh, dude, you would find this so hilarious. Someone was super proud about Indian guy, super proud
Yeah,
about JD Vance being nominated as the vice president because his
yeah.
he's married to an Indian immigrant's daughter. I was
Oh,
like, really?
okay.
This is the bar we've set to be proud of things.
So you remember when your friend did all the homework on all the candidates and had it all laid out,
Mhm.
and I said, Deepak, there was a French study. You and I can look at two pictures of two candidates and with 86% accuracy, choose who's going to win.
Yeah, the
That's
person that
that's
looks
what it's
better.
about. That's what it's about. I'm going to be interested to see anyone that wastes their time on the youth vote wastes their time. This is one time it might work. So we'll see. I don't, I mean, so over here, after this terrible event happened, you would think all Americans could agree that this would be a bad event.
Yeah.
Not true anymore.
Hmm.
So we had political people on the right side of the deal, basically immediately wanting retribution against the people who did it. But when the people who did it turned out to be their people, they still wanted retribution against the left as if they did something.
No. Yeah.
That is where we are.
The super right and the super left both are weird as fuck at this point, where they point at each other and everyone else is just stuck in the middle trying to get the country going.
Right. But they're all anybody hears anymore. And you know this from BBC work and cable news here with me when I was younger. I mean, that's what sells. What doesn't sell is you and I casually talking about what's going on in politics and behind the scenes. If a tornado happened and I'm the guy who lost his house, and you come up with a camera and go, "What do you plan to do?" And I'd say, "Well, I think I'm going to try to get a hold of my insurance guy first, but I'm sure he's really busy right now, so I was going to give it a couple of hours."
Yeah,
that will never make the news.
Right. If I was the producer, I would be like, nope, not that guy.
No one's watching that guy. He's too normal.
Find me a weirdo.
So
claims gay people.
So I need a guy with a wife beater and hair coming out of his shoulders. That worked. And so if people ever could figure out a way to understand how news is made, if I want news made and I'm at a commissioner's meeting, I need to lean forward and do my point, give the cameras a second to set up, and then say what I want to say. I'll make the news.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how do we move beyond that here? I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, to be very honest with you, like the main thing I was thinking of is how the way media opinion, the guys who produce those shows just to get their eyeballs, keep polarizing people, like getting them either far left or far right. They get them amped up. The media has to take some responsibility at some point for stoking the flames for all these years. Well, and now they get to settle advertising because something shitty happened because of what they did.
Right. Isn't that crazy?
Like, how is it right that they benefit from what they fucked up essentially?
Well, that is probably the best description of what's really going on. So they have to create controversy.
Oh,
so
Sean,
people will watch.
Just hold for 1 second. I want to show you something.
Okay. Do I need my glasses? Hey, nice fish tank, Goober. You seem to like fish in that apartment or house. How do you keep a fish tank that clean?
Sorry about that.
Yeah, you're right, buddy.
Oh, no. I was trying to find the newspaper from yesterday where it had a headline that said Trump death and really small font, like it just missed type thing. And that was what they used to sell that newspaper, where that was the front page.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
So CNN, I think we talked about this last week, has run this nonstop 24 hours a day, replace Joe Biden thing. The guy won the nomination. It's over. He has to step down to change it. I mean, that's not how it works. Even if you wanted it, but I tell you what, it got everybody riled up and watching. Who could you change him with? And so he has a mixed race female vice president. It goes to her. There's no other choice.
Yep.
Black females are the most dedicated voters in the Democratic Party. You do not get to pass over their candidate.
Oh, for sure.
Right. You can't pass over their candidate, you lose no matter what. No matter what, because they literally will punish you for it, and deservingly so. So the governor of California is the other shot.
I'll hide the newspaper's name so that I don't get into trouble. Look at this shit, Sean.
Wow.
This is how they
got people to buy. That is just a total fraud.
Yeah, this is like clickbait in print form.
God, that sucks, Deepak.
Fucking animals.
So So 1 billion people think Donald died then. Well, look that.
Well, at least they would
I
have
don't-
bought it and read through the first few paragraphs before they figured out it didn't.
Right. So do you want to talk for a minute about the BBC interview with that redheaded guy, that
Did I miss
the
something?
one that I told you to watch on my BBC was the first one to get an interview with a guy going, "Hey, we told Secret Service there was a guy up on top of this building, and we did."
Yes. The video you sent me, I actually showed my
Right.
friend where you can see the guy sleeping on top.
Right. Well, he's not sleeping, he's hiding
Yeah.
in plain view. That probably needs to be addressed. And there's a lot in America right now, and probably over where you are, there are a lot of conspiracy theories because it was poorly handled.
Yeah.
But every other assassination attempt I've seen, they get real close to the person and pop off a couple of rounds. Like, you have to get, and with 3D weapons and all this other stuff, that's probably easier. But that guy, really and truly, for that far away, he wasn't a United States Marine, or it would have been over. But if the Donald had been looking to the right, you've got a Kennedy situation.
Yeah.
And look, I'm not happy about it. I don't necessarily detest him. I detest his personality.
John, and anybody who listens to this podcast knows that both of us really don't like guns.
Yeah.
So it's really not a fucking problem.
Yeah. It's but now that it's happened to one of their guys, maybe something happens. I don't know. What if that thing had a bump stock on it, everything's over.
Oh yeah.
Everything, it's over. Like, the 3 seconds you got off 10 shots instead of 3 or 4 shots. There's so many angles to look at on this thing, to go, there were so many wrongs, and why are you having an open air place in the most contentious political environment in America in 100 years? I mean, you got to take some responsibility for your choices too.
It's probably one of those weird. So usually they used to have those bulletproof shields behind which candidates used to speak from. Like, I don't know what happened to that. It's probably some idiot from social media marketing who said, we can't get good shots of you if you're standing behind that damn thing.
Well, they'll be back now. So from here, you have this convention, which everybody's interested in because of what happened last week, and it's the newer, kinder Donald. It's the newer, kinder, because everyone found out about Project 2025 and their poll numbers are tanking. So they just changed, and the client base that follows them doesn't understand that they're just getting played. That's what's hard to do. Not that you guys have had any strong rulers or anything that do the exact same thing, but there seems to be a pattern.
I was actually looking at some old news articles, because we were actually a super progressive country back in the 80s itself, where we had our first woman prime minister. She was assassinated. So they went.
So how that worked. Right.
Yeah, that was like an
Madeira Gandhi. What's her
Indira Gandhi. Yeah. Indira with an I.
Okay, that's pretty close.
Yeah,
Indira,
I was surprised you knew the name.
Madeira's wine.
See, this is when I know that you're well read.
Right. Well, and the thing that I would say is I've always been fascinated with politics. I mean, always. And in the 80s, I would have been 15, 16 years old, and I was I was familiar enough with your country to know who led it in the 80s. That's although I do think most Indian women are pretty smoking hot. That could be part of the deal.
That was part of the problem.
It was when I realized that women that weren't as pale and blue as me looked really good.
Your formative years, Sean. Thanks to our prime minister back then.
For people that don't know, I went to an international boarding school, not because I was rich. I was there on scholarship. But there were people from all over the world there, and I'd never really been around anybody other than whites and blacks. And I like my coffee with a little cream. And oh man, I'm telling you. And I'm sure there's listeners just going, oh my God, this guy. I didn't know. How do you know if you don't know? My entire neighborhood was so white. I don't know if I can tell you how bad the sunburns were every time summer rolled around. that was the sickness of the year.
Say, if there was an Indian in that neighborhood, he would have set up a nice little shop at the corner selling just
Right.
sunscreen for you
Selling
guys.
right. So we had like four Mexican families, but they were out on the periphery and they didn't play the same kind of games we did because they were. So we were all big, huge families, just like the Hispanics were. We were all Catholic, just like the Hispanics were, but they ate better food, and I think they didn't want to tell us how much better their food was. So like I ate at the Italian guy that moved into the house across the street. I don't ever remember eating at the Mexican family's house, but I don't know if they had kids my age. I don't remember what the deal was. And they were friendly with everybody and all went to school, but their dads were like an import export. So they needed to know everybody. It was a strange setup, but that's really it was the whitest damn place you can ever imagine. Bunch of just Irish people that moved over to an area with sun.
See, I have a theory about where the Mexican kids were. Their fathers were probably teaching them their business in the free time, not letting them roam around with you idiots.
Right. Well, we were learning our own businesses. That was the difference. And the fathers, they might have been smart enough to see that, because our parents, they were busy. Mexican large families still all hang together and play, and Irish ones do till there's a split in the family, and then that changes a little bit.
Or if someone starts doing better than what they should be doing according to the rest of the people's eyes.
Tall poppy, baby. You know the deal. They get cut down. It sucks, doesn't it? I would be interested in how many immigrant groups do the same thing. Because we all came over here dirt poor. Your people are coming over here educated already. We didn't have that. That took us 20 years to get to that.
But I think that now the immigration rates have slowed for the sole reason that India also is improving standard of living. But also, I don't think the degrees have the same value that they did. And it's much more difficult. Like, Sean, there is a 300% increase from when my company sponsored my visa back in 2011 to what it is now. Like, they must have paid like 8 or 10 grand back then. Right now, I think they paid like 30, 35.
That's too much. You gotta have a lower threshold. Look, the big thing is we made income tax off of you the whole time you were here. We profited. I mean, we're not doing anybody a favor. You rented property, you purchased, so we got money from you on sales tax, whether you realize it or not, we got property tax off of you. I mean, so we were probably getting 35 to 45% of your income.
Oh, for sure.
That's why you bring in educated immigrants rather than low-end labor. I mean, we need low-end labor, but they can stand down at the Home Depot and work for cash. We don't get anything out of that.
Yeah. Those are like those gray economies that hide in cash-only areas.
Right. And they exist. So since restaurants and stores and everything started basically charging 3% if you want to use a credit card, cash has made a little more of a return. You're no longer frowned upon for using cash. Because 5 years ago, people were like, "Oh, what are you doing?" You go, "I own a restaurant. That's what I'm doing."
It used to be super weird because you would pay for everything in cash. And even like the waiters and waitresses would be so confused.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And you as a person in the industries you're in only use either a debit or a credit. The reason I don't use them, and I know we're probably way off our original subject matter, but this is important. So my wife's the mayor of the city of the village. We have a gas station there that we had 3 of our cards compromised in. And when you have this many employees and one of your bank accounts gets compromised, you can't have that happen twice. So it really went back to, I would only pay for gas in cash so it didn't get compromised. The shit they put on those deals are so good, there's no way to tell. I pull on them. I do everything that the news tells you to do.
It basically just slides in and looks exactly like what the card insert section in that machine is.
It's genius, man. I mean, it really is. That is some brilliant criminal work. I mean, if only we could get them to go straight, what could they invent?
Yeah. If you could use all this power for good.
Right. What could we get? All right. What else do you want to talk about today? Because there's just such a plethora. I don't even know where to start. So here in Oklahoma, okay, here's a good one for you for people who think your country's politics are worse than anybody else's.
Mm-hmm.
Oklahoma County Jail here, which I've worked against for years because they put it in private hands basically, but not really, just enough to shield people, have refused to allow the health department to come in the building. Like they just won't let them in.
How is that even legal? Oh, because it's private.
Not. But this is the new America where politicians are just like, stick it to you. I don't have to do what you say. And you go, actually, page 34, column 5 says you do. Are you sure? But they'll take them to court and they don't care because they have free legal people.
Hmm.
It's not on
nice to
them.
have like one of your business partners who's an attorney. I do have one in my
free.
firm as well, but
Right. It's nice.
One of those weird things where you just have them around for pro bono work when shit hits the fan.
In the pub, it quells my behavior to know I can be sued.
Mhm.
So I don't want to have an attorney around all the time because I'd be like, is it okay, bro?
Yeah,
So I mean, that's really. So the other stuff that I think we might want to eventually look at, and maybe not this show, but maybe another show. But let's tease it today.
Mhm.
Okay, I have 5 grown children. You know every one of them.
Yeah.
We have 3 master's degrees between the kids. Everybody's graduated from college except one, and he dropped out last semester, senior year.
Mhm.
I do not have a single child that owns a house.
Oh, wow.
And I owned my first house when I was 26 or 25, maybe at the worst 27, but in that era. And they all make money.
Isn't it weird that like I don't know how many people my age and below would be able to own a house in America anymore.
Right. Yeah. And
Like
so Rosie owns a house, but they bought a delinquent house that they had to gut and redo. Still 80 grand up front. 80.
Oh, wow. Mm-hmm.
In a sketchy ass neighborhood. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So how do we look at the American economy and think it's okay?
Yeah.
It's not even within their purview to go, well, if I do this and this and this, I could get that done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there are no stepwise things. Like think about it here, where I read an article where Bangalore was getting so expensive with their rents that a lot of people are like moving, like software professionals at really good jobs with like Apple, Google, moving outskirts of the city and renting or buying a cheap apartment there rather than staying in the city.
Right. And then comes the commute and worse traffic and everything else that comes along with it.
Yeah.
So you build a 5-lane road because your city's so big, and then a 5-lane road coming in and a 5-lane road going out. The problem is, no matter what, as soon as there's a little bit of congestion, it does no better than everybody driving through the side streets. It really doesn't. Scientifically, I don't know why I was at a meeting where they covered all this stuff.
It's called queuing theory. I've actually read about it.
And then they go, well, build another lane. And you go, that'll only hold 10 cars once it starts slowing down. Like really and truly, by the end of rush hour, it'll move 500 or 600 cars. That's it. And really what you need to do is break up people through the city. But your city is going through the same growing spurts that most large cities in America have gone through. And ours is not a large city. And this used to be a really inexpensive place to get housing. And that's why it was
back in the day, I'm pretty sure that the first house we stayed in Edmond was like 40 grand to buy. This is 2010. Right now, if you go back to that house, that's probably like $500,000 type, $250,000 at least.
Yeah, isn't that crazy? And so I don't know, we can talk about these 2 ancient human beings that want to run the country right now. But we have real problems with people under 30. And if they feel no hope, and the reason I bring this up is if I were in Ireland, I never would have had a chance to own property. I had to inherit it. It was the only way I was going to get it, unless I wanted to live out in a farm community. which would isolate me from everybody, and petrol would be $14 a gallon. You know, I mean, just that it in the short term, yes, I had a roof over my head. In the long term, I've isolated myself in my own jail.
And your dreams have died.
Right.
Sorry, I had to say that.
So without that hope, what do we do literally with this? I mean, it's your generation. And they seem to be behaving like Europeans, and people my age are upset with them. And you go, why are you upset? And you go, well, they don't buy a house because they buy coffee. And you go, so the only thing they see as affordable pleasure this morning is a coffee made the way they want it. That's the best their days. Right.
Yeah,
That's
nobody thinks about that long-term play that the previous generation used to.
Yeah.
Like you used to think about, hey, what do I do in the future for the kids, grandkids, all of that. Whereas in this generation, a lot of them are not having children, first of all.
Right. Yeah. So they don't have to worry about it.
Yeah. And the next thing is that they want the best of what they can for that day, because they work hard and they want to enjoy the little time they have with the money that they have, rather than put it as a deposit and then struggle to find the money to pay the monthly payments on a mortgage that for a house that they rarely stay in because they're out meeting friends and living their life.
Right. It is, and they're social, you know, whereas I probably wouldn't have been considered social because I was just trying to put money away. Yeah. And I get it. I mean, I'm watching it. And what I would say is our economy is becoming more European.
Yep.
But if we're still struggling with the 80-year-olds won't get out of the way, how do these folks down here ever see that they've got a shot at that? And I think that's something we need to do, like the whole show on after we do some in-depth reading. But it's crazy. And I just the 5 kids and only one has a house, and it was a tax house. You know, he bought it for taxes. Yeah, crazy.
Think about that other study as well. We'll talk about it, where I think 90% of the wealth of India is owned by like 5% of its population.
So ours is 55% is less than 1%. Yeah. And so if they drug that out, it might be about the same. So everybody plays to those folks. And so we had a minimum wage vote, and I know we're running out of time. We've got a minimum wage vote coming up because they did a citizens petition to get it on the ballot because our politicians won't do it. They got double the amount of signatures they needed.
Yeah.
So it shows you that our government, especially in a poor state like this, does not represent the people.
Yeah, those politicians are worried about which fucking book to read and which book not to keep in the library, rather than what is the minimum wage and does it actually equate to inflation and the expenses.
No. I mean, $7 an hour. My God, what are you going to buy? 2 bottles of water?
John, see, that's the thing. So during my scholarship at UCO, right, as an international student, I had to work X amount of hours on campus. I used to be like a teaching assistant. And that used to pay $7.25 an hour.
Back then.
I feel like, that was 2010. It's still the same.
And houses now are 3 times as expensive or more than they were at that time.
Yeah.
So you couldn't rent in Edmond for under $1,500 to $2,000 now.
I had 3 roommates. They were all international students from different countries. So we all had.
God, the food was good, wasn't it?
Oh, every white kid from the sororities and the frat houses down the street used to end up at our house. Like in the middle of the night, they'll be like, "Do y'all have any leftovers?"
Yeah, that's awesome. Hey, guy, we got to work with what you have. That's my thing. Is I'm and you know, nobody else my age seems to give a shit about any of this, or it just doesn't enter their minds.
Yeah.
And I don't know how you get that. So I just watched an entire. Well, I didn't watch. I know this entire convention didn't cover it, and maybe the Democrats will, but I mean, Joe is old and sleepy. But nobody's wrong saying that.
Yeah.
And then we've got the lunatic Kennedy on the other side, who's got a bug crawling around in his brain.
Oh God. Yep. That's where we are.